Welcome to Mental Health Monday. So good to be here with all of you this evening. Good to be here with you, Dr. White.
Good to see you as well.
This is the first time we are together this year, so I'm just thankful to be here. And the technical issues we were having last week, we're not having them this week. We had a little bit of stuff, but we were able to work it out, and we are here. So we are just so thankful. As always, please let us know where you guys are watching from. And before you even do that, most importantly, please share this link on your social media. Invite your friends to learn about some mental health tools and topics that they may not be familiar with. And we're talking about the disease the disease to please. That is the book, and we are. Some people may think, well, that's not my issue, but maybe it's somebody that you love. It might be their issue. You can educate yourself on what they are going through and what their mind set is like. So now, please share on your social media and please let us know after you share, please let us know where you are viewing from so we can say a special welcome to you.
Absolutely.
Yes. And we don't see Clint Ives, but we see Emily Ives. And I'm just assuming that that's your better half, Clint. So Emily, welcome. So we know you're watching from Texas because that's where Clint always is
It's
watching
it's
from.
what is it? Longview. I think it's Longview, Texas.
Texas, yes. Longview, Texas.
Longview. I see Ashley. Welcome, Ashley from Dillon, South Carolina.
Yes, okay. And I see Bree Keys, which is like a daughter to me and to Ivor. So welcome. And she is from Raleigh, North Carolina. So we
Oh,
have
okay.
North
Yeah.
Carolina here, and she's a member of the Living Manor Church. So we are happy to have you here, Bree.
Let me guess. Brother Tennessee is probably from Tennessee.
I don't know. You could assume that.
All
You
right.
could assume that we're not. We don't know it for sure um, if that's where you are from, Brother Tennessee. But welcome. Good to see you here.
Mhm.
We have Cherise from Virginia. So
Absolutely.
welcome. Good to see you. Um, yes. So thank you guys. And we have Marie. Did you already welcome Dee Jones because she's from Monroe, Louisiana?
No, I didn't welcome D Jones, but welcome D Jones.
Yes, welcome
Mhm.
to Mental Health Monday. We are just again so happy to be back with you guys. And then Cynthia, we have another one from Texas. Texas is such a big state.
Seriously. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definite shout out to Bree. Um,
Yes, yes,
yeah,
and
I'm loving the topic that you're gonna discuss this evening. I get to interview you. On the book.
okay, okay, Dr. White. Yeah, well, I love this topic too. I do.
Yeah, yeah.
Just because I see so many clients that deal with this. There's more, yeah, I see a lot of people who deal with this. And we're gonna go deeper into that. But we are looking into the book
Yeah.
The Disease to Please. And so this is talking about being a people pleaser. And we're going to talk about what that really looks like. But this is by Harriet Brachier. And if
Mhm.
you're pronouncing her name right, she has her PhD. She's a psychologist. And so she breaks this down. And, this topic is one of those topics where people may have this issue, the disease to please, meaning like being a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And they've never even looked at it like that as an issue or a problem because what's wrong with making people happy? What's wrong with, being so kind? It's ironic that during our current Sabbath school study that we're doing for the Living Manna Church, we're going through kindness. We were supposed to have a whole talk on it this past Sabbath, but technical issues didn't allow us to do that. So we'll be following up this Sabbath, but we're talking about that. And so, yes, we are to be kind people. Even some people may think like, how is this an issue? Why are you even talking about this? And so we're going to discuss um, the different aspects of being a people pleaser and how it can become an issue.
What
So,
it comes to mental health, so often it's not what you do, it's
Mhm.
why you're doing it.
Right. Right.
And that is what we're going to learn is the real deciding factor as it relates to people pleasing. It's
Mhm.
it's not just pleasing people, but why are you pleasing people?
Right.
And so that's what we're going to jump into. Now, definitions are always, I think, a good idea. What
Mhm.
what what is your definition of people pleasing? And be sure to include the pathology component of it. Like what's wrong with people pleasing? What is it and what's wrong with it?
Right. So what's wrong with it is when you are you're doing nice things for people, but it's you're motivated out of fear, and you feel like if I don't do these nice things they won't like me. When you're doing these nice things and this is what is defining you, like you don't have self-esteem, or you're basically nothing or nobody, you have faulty thoughts about yourself unless you do these things. But again, because it's based out of fear and you just think like if I don't do this they won't love me, they won't like me, and it's not really out of a space where you just want to do something nice with nothing in return. You're not doing it so that they'll like you. You're doing it because it's just the right thing to do.
Right. So it's out of balance.
It's
It's
all
it's
about.
it's out of balance. And you're doing it to your own hurt. The
Mm.
book talked about a consistent pattern of making the needs of others a priority over your own. Like
And
that's consistent.
yes, that's consistent. And you know what's so dangerous about that? And I know in the Christian world, that sounds like, well, yeah, isn't that a biblical principle? Aren't we supposed to do that? And again, when it's coming from that space of fear, or I'm doing these things just so that they will like me and they will want to be my friend, or he'll want to be my boyfriend, or she'll want to be my girlfriend, or my parents will love me because I'm doing these things, not just because I am who I am. That's when it becomes a problem. But also, as Christians, we think like, well, of course we're supposed to do all these things. I'm not supposed to put myself first. And the clients that I work with, where I have to um, help them with the disease to please and help them to understand that if you don't pour into yourself, you're not going to be the best version of yourself as a wife, or as a husband, or as a mother, or as a father, or as a daughter, son, employee. So when you pour into yourself, you actually show up to be the best, again, version of yourself for everyone else. I even talk to mothers about this because we are always, and of course I've been guilty of this. I have 4 kids. You're always, putting the kids before yourself. And then you get to a point where you get kind of resentful, right? You hear mothers getting this. Of course, we get burned out because we don't do enough self-care for ourselves. And so when you're always putting other people before you, it's good to do nice, kind things. But if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not nurturing yourself and meeting your needs. You're not able to set boundaries. So again, you can show up and be the best version of yourself. We have a
Yeah,
question.
phenomenal. So of course, greetings, Clint. Definitely, I feel like this is a reunion. Um, but Clint asked, "What is the limit for putting others first? What is the limit?" So, in other words, when is it appropriate to put the needs of others first? Hmm, that's a really good
It
question.
is a really good question. As long, okay, again, if your basis, if for you, okay, if you're afraid to tell the other person that is asking you to do or put them before you, if you're afraid um, to say no to them, because if you're afraid to say no, then that's an issue. If you're not afraid to say no, but and you actually have the space and time to be able to do something, you've met your own needs, you've met your needs for your wife, or for your husband and your children, then it's okay to put somebody, to say yes to someone, as long as those your needs are met. And I think the question is, putting them first before yourself? Is that what you're saying? What is the
What's the limit? Like, I think it's, in other words, when is it appropriate? And I think what you gotta explore, Clint, is the why. Why are you putting them first? As a
right?
physician, what is the oath is literally, my patient will be my first consideration, will be my first consideration. So talk about putting others first. The tradition of medicine is that we put the needs of others first. We put the
Mhm.
needs of that patient first. And I tell you, um, if the expectation is that I'll be loved because I put this person's need first. I'll tell you right now, the setting where I work, like, you would be deeply disappointed. It's got to come from a place where it's clear I feel like this is the right thing to do, and I have to recognize it's not like this will necessarily even be valued. So I have to have the internal fortitude to recognize I feel like this is the right thing, and I'm doing it because I feel it's the right thing, and not because I'm expecting that their response is going to validate me.
Mhm.
Because we have tons of, and I'm sure you have the this as well. You have patients who don't necessarily value your sacrifice.
Right. Yeah, of course. That can definitely happen. But especially I mean, in our field, why not? And dealing with mental health, you have to be able to set those boundaries because we um, take on so much listening and hearing other people's issues and problems that we have to do self care and pour into ourselves so that we'll be able to withstand listening to that at the length that we do each and every day. So it's just so very important. But we have another question. Um,
Ashley
if our
asks, go ahead. You want to
Yes,
read it? Or you want me to-
if our
Uh,
example is Jesus, and he often worked to exhaustion, caring for others at the cost of himself. How does that square with self care? That's
you
a
want
very
to
good
take the first stab? Or you want me to take the first stab?
one. Yes. Okay. So, Jesus did, but okay, okay. So, do you remember? I'm not giving proper I can't quote the text, but you remember when Jesus said, "Come and let's go rest for a while." Like he had to take some time off to recuperate. So he did not that's a principle Jesus was teaching us, like, yes, I'm out here doing ministry, I'm healing people, I'm, raising the dead. I'm doing all kinds of stuff, but there's a time where I need to go and do self care. And there was time that he needed to just go spend with his father to rejuvenate. And that is what the self care should look like for us as well. So he could go back out and do what he needed to do. And eventually, the final event of what he did for all of us, and that's dying on the cross. But he still had to, even Jesus had to take some time out and not take care of people's needs and take care of his own needs.
Here in Southern California, there's a revered pastor, former pastor at Mount Rubin Seventh-day Adventist Church, and his name was Pastor Curtis Fox.
Mhm.
And you know a pastor's good when you can literally remember one of their sermons. And
Mm,
one of his sermons was entitled, The Greater Call, The Greater
mm,
Call. And
mhm,
he talked about that scenario that you just mentioned, Sister Tante, where he said, um, God had sent out the disciples, the apostles, and they were healing and doing awesome things. And then they came back to him and they were so excited. And his call then was, come aside and rest a while. Come
yes,
aside and rest a while. And he entitled it The Greater Call. So it's like God calls us to go out and do X, Y, or Z. But
mhm,
then could it be that the greater call is come aside and rest a while?
yes,
Very, very profound sermon. But I would say the key thing, Ashley, and this is so essential, Jesus's steps were ordered by God.
Yeah.
Jesus's steps were ordered by God. So if
Mhm.
God's orders lead you to a cross and a crucifixion, that's one thing. The problem becomes when we are taking our own steps to a cross God didn't ordain for us.
Right.
That's the problem. That's when it becomes a problem. And so that's why it's so critical to investigate the why of your behavior. Why
Mm,
are you doing it? And
mhm.
I think it's incredibly surprising the why so many of us give into this behavior of people pleasing.
Right.
And the why is really interesting to me. And so maybe we'll take a question or two before we get to what are some of the reasons why we people please. You might be shocked.
Right. I don't know if we have another question or not. I think, okay, when one pops up, I do just want to look at what the author of the book, The Disease to Please, she breaks it down into like a triangle into three groups. So people who deal with this and battle with being a people pleaser, she breaks it down into the mindset and to habits and feelings. So when it comes to the mindset, she talks about they have distorted ways of thinking, distorted ways of thinking. Again, thinking like we covered that a little bit in the beginning, that people will like me only if I do this for them. And inside, so they're physically doing these things, but inside, they have anger that they are trained to not show. They know how to not show it because they're mad, like, man, I'm having to do this just to be liked, but I'm trained myself in my thinking patterns that this is the only way that I can be liked and loved by others. So it's a distorted way of thinking. That is
Well,
just one
and
example. Did you have
well,
something to say?
well, that's interesting because I think that's one of the things that she highlights is, and that very impaired thought actually, rather than it securing friends, if anything, it actually chases real lasting friends away
Right,
because friends value authenticity.
right.
And people prone to people pleasing, they
Mhm.
fear being honest that, hey man, you're really upsetting me right now.
Right.
They fear that they're going to lose the person, and the reality is people don't like inauthenticity. People don't like, they want that, I know I upset you, so I want to hear that I upset you. um
Mhm.
so you don't have to bite people's heads off per se, but the idea just being one way or another, you need to communicate the real you. uh Ashley, yeah, go ahead.
No, is there another question? Go ahead.
Ashley is following up with, it seemed like how Jesus did self care was through prayer. So, should that be our main avenue of self care rather than other activities? I'm definitely noticing that prayer is how he got his briefing.
Right.
Prayer is how he literally got his steps ordered. So
Mhm.
you and I both, well, maybe not you. Let me just say me. When I pray, so often it's this one-sided conversation. It's really, I mean, it's really awful.
Mhm.
How about those 30-second prayers? Blah blah blah
Mhm.
blah blah, and you're off. So little time is spent giving God an opportunity to communicate to you. So little time is really given to God ordering our steps. So
Mhm.
no, I don't think prayer is the therapeutic thing. um I think prayer is incredibly helpful, but
Yes.
I'm saying, like, I'm saying what's really helpful is that if you're taking on a cross, it's been God ordained rather
Mhm.
than you volunteering. Because, like, what we as Christians are at risk for is God saying, I never knew you.
Mm.
And we do all these, but God, I did this, I did that, I went over there, I did this missionary thing. It's like, I know, it's just I never knew you.
Right.
You never asked me what I wanted you to do. We
Mhm.
didn't have intimacy. You know, and I think that's easily remedied by, Lord, what would you have me do?
Mhm.
And really taking some time to really listen and get some clarity. Lord, what would you have me do?
Mhm.
And then if it's, if you're asked to do this difficult thing, then, so be it. Um,
Mhm.
but no, I think relaxing activities actually are actually recreational activities.
Mhm.
Time on the Sabbath where there's downtime, there's a departure from the norm,
Yeah.
and you're more restoring, you're engaging in activities that recreate you.
Mhm.
Meaningful time with loved ones, meaningful time doing the things that you enjoy. And again, that when you engage in those activities, it recreates you. Prayer can have a component to that, but I
Yeah.
really think the prayer is important for ordering our steps. What were you going to say, sis?
Mhm. No, I agree with everything that you just shared. And so quality, I mean, not quality time, sorry. Just pouring into yourself or self-care is going to look different for everyone. But like you said, prayer definitely, I mean, is definitely plays a part in that. I believe that starting your day um, in devotion with God is self care, and so prayer and just even being like I want to say meditation because you said like it's a 30-second little quick one-sided prayer, but when you meditate on God and His Word. It's like you are just allowing the Holy Spirit to minister to you when you're just meditating on his word because his word is speaking to your heart, right? So that definitely can look like um self-care as well. And then outside of that, like Dr. White was saying, there are other activities that are also self-care, going on a walk, taking time to just exercise. And I'm speaking to like, let's just say you're a very busy mom with little kids. You don't even take time to uh, to do that self-care and take care of yourself just by going on a walk, just like a 20-30 minute walk. I mean, that could be self-care pouring into yourself and putting that 30 minutes to yourself before you go do something for somebody else. Don't forget about yourself. People pleasers are nice to everybody else and they're not always nice to themselves.
Wow. Oh, you could say that again. You got to say that again.
People pleasers are nice to everyone else, but they are not always nice to their self. And
Isn't
they
that
almost
something?
are, yeah, they self-sabotage themselves thinking like they don't have, they don't have to put themselves first or do something for themselves and put a boundary down before they do something nice for somebody else. They think that that is bad. They think that that is they've trained their faulty thinking, their distorted thinking tells them that that is bad.
It's almost like the command that light is brightest at the source. No, let us be light. We're called to be light. We're called to be salt. And isn't it
Yeah.
interesting when you see people who are nicer to the outer environment than
Mhm.
their inner environment? Like you'll get, sometimes, religious people who they're super nice to the congregation, but they're horrible to their own families.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
no,
Yes.
light is brightest at the source. It should be your family that experience the most love, and then it propagates from there. No, not
Yeah,
not the other way around.
should not be
But
that way.
anyway,
Very good analogy to prove this as well. Yeah.
yeah,
Taking care of yourself first. Yes. I mean, a
yeah,
lot of, yeah. Well, we don't, that's a whole nother topic, but
topic.
it would be nice if ministers take care of their families first and be the light there first. And then the congregation, the church gets the secondary.
Yeah,
Still a
so
wonderful light, still a great love and light and work, but the family should be coming first or getting it first.
absolutely.
Go ahead. There's
Deborah
another question.
Hailing. Deborah Hailing said, "Would you say that church has contributed in a negative way in us as Christians not taking care of ourselves because we all were taught to put others first from our church leaders?" Um, I won't put this on the church, uh, because when you talk about the church, theoretically, the perfect church is perfect. What is really the entity of the church, what's really designed by God, is flawless. So when the things that we want to ascribe to the church, really, it's usually the perverted or the warped version of what God created. So I won't call it the church, but what I will say, Deborah, is that we, in this busy world, we enjoy convenience. We like what's easy. And to learn what God would have us do, it takes time. It takes patience. It's God, are you up there? I'm waiting to hear, and it takes time. It takes you really getting clear and giving it time. And so, what we would rather do is, well, let me use my own brain. Let me see. This is a nice thing to do, and this is a nice thing to do, and this is a nice thing to do. And let me do those things, and let me presume God would have me do those things. And then sometimes when we've chosen a bunch of stuff and it's burning us out, then we blame church. And
Mhm.
the reality is, yes, you are doing things you think are appropriate, but you weren't necessarily directed by God to do those things.
Or to
Okay.
do that, to do
You
it without putting, just a balance, not being balanced, not to quite do it like that without putting boundaries.
right. So again, it's why. It's why. And so we sometimes have been in the culture. We've gotten into this culture of we want to do nice activities without figuring out, is this what God is directing?
Mhm.
And I think that's where we can get into some trouble, Deborah. And I would say in a Christian context, sometimes we'll see that. We'll see people engaging in activities, engaging in positive activities, and presuming that this is what God would have them do, and not necessarily. Sometimes it might be one less activity, and instead, hey, maybe some investment in the marriage would be a really good idea. Investment in the kids might be a really good idea. Now, sometimes that's not as popular, but maybe that's the real vineyard God wants you to really pour into. So it's a great point, Deborah. I'm just careful about what I ascribe to the church, understanding that what God set up is perfect, and very often we pervert it, and we're left with perverted vestiges of what God set up, and so now we're inclined to you know, describe it as God's when in fact, nah, but this is not how he set it up. So just want to clarify that.
Right. Or we're modeling what we see in other human beings not setting boundaries. So we're like, oh, okay, they work endlessly um, for the church and not pour into themselves. So I'm going to do the same thing. So I guess I see what you're saying. It's not that the church promotes for you to tear yourself down or not to take self care or to not ever say no. But what we're doing tonight, I can't say these type of understanding is taught to make people to feel safe enough to be able to say, okay, well, I need to put my family first. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect
It's
sense.
spoken about from the pulpit first, right? Make sure like, hey, we want you to serve in these positions. We want you to volunteer here, but please make sure that you and your family are taken care of first before you even pour into to others and for what the church what you would like to do for the church.
And part of the issue is when things are run by volunteers, it kind of puts you in a desperate situation
Mhm.
where you're taking whatever help you can get theoretically. And so sometimes the message is not propagated as powerfully as it should be. You know what, guys? Please make sure things are good at home, because one of the strongest contributors that you can actually make to the church is a strong home. Like that's a ministry. A
Yes.
church filled with homes that are really strong, they're going to definitely contribute. They're going to contribute in every sense. And a
Mhm.
church where all the relationships are falling apart, that's going to hurt the church ultimately.
Yeah.
But yeah, in a volunteer setting, a lot of times there's some desperation for assistance, and so there's too much of a focus on the short term sometimes, and not necessarily the long term. So
Right.
we definitely get that.
Something else that Dr. Brachier discusses, she says, she talks about how childhood experiences can shape people pleasing behaviors. For example, children who grow up in environments where love, acceptance, are conditional, often learn to please others to gain affection.
Yeah, and you kind of connect it to trauma, because they're behaving out of fear. They've got these, they're afraid because sometimes these were some really rigid, settings, and you had to be careful to navigate around the person's fury. So I got to make sure I can get that conditional, acceptance. And
Mhm.
she connected it to an addiction paradigm, which I thought was really interesting.
Right.
So some of the principles for what makes something addictive is when there is not only benefit. First of all, there's a pattern to make something addictive. Like you do it this time, you do it this time, but there's no reward. You do it this time, now there's a reward. um,
Mhm.
and that kind of unpredictable pattern, it can make something addictive, right?
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
Another little twist to that, though, is I don't know if you've ever, like, this happens when you eat stuff a lot, like I don't know if you've ever eaten something and it blew out the back of your head, where you're just like, whoa, that was way better than I thought it would be.
Never
um,
heard that term before. It blew out the back of your head. Like
like
it
it
was so
was just so good,
it was
like just
that
like
powerful.
So
Okay.
there's a coconut drink. There's a coconut drink. A friend of mine, her name is Vanessa Oyafosu. I taught a class for her, and I must have been wearing a sign, "Will work for food. I will not work for food." Okay, this was just a special thing. But whatever the case, at the end of the class, she said, "You did a great job," and she introduces me to this drink, this coconut drink, and it was pink of all things. I thought it was
Mm,
like, it's got this strange name, Wellness or something like that, and
okay.
it blew out the back of, I was like, wow, this is good. This is like you just opened up a coconut and drank it, and it was a sweet coconut at that. That's what
It
I mean
wasn't
by it was
just
surprisingly
coconut,
good. What's that?
wasn't just coconut water.
It was coconut water, but I don't know their distilling process or how they get the coconut. It's out of
Very
this world. It was just, but surprisingly so. Like, you weren't expecting it to be that good. Well, needless to say, she started me on an addiction run. I had to get rehabilitated.
the
I'm
coconut
totally
water.
joking. I'm totally joking.
Okay.
But
I think
but
so.
what's that? What's that?
Being honest, I think you were addicted to it.
I gotta be careful sharing stuff with sisters.
You just telling you're just telling the world if they tune into this.
But
Um,
she was especially high, but the author is especially highlighting the unpredictable nature of this positive feedback, and
right.
how before you know it, it's hardwiring you to
Mhm.
engage in this people pleasing pattern to the
Yes.
detriment of your well-being,
Mhm.
and to where you don't form those relationships you're actually wanting to form. You're doing this stuff to please people so they'll be your friend, when actually
Right.
it's pushing them away, right?
Right.
You
Right.
want to be able to set the boundaries that you set. Some people will stay, and yes, some people will go, but guess what? They probably needed to go anyway.
And the thing about that is, and what hurts the people pleaser is deep down, because they have their thoughts are distorted, even though they have these people in their life because they are doing all of these nice things for them, in the back of their mind or in their distorted thought process, they're just thinking, they don't really like me, they only like me because I'm doing nice things. And that just, the self-esteem, for the people pleaser person, can just go downhill from there, just because they just don't have confidence or believe that these people really like them for them. But then they're already on the cycle and they keep doing it. It's like, I have to do this. It's the only way I'm going to have people in my life. None of that is true, but that is the negative distortions and thought process that people pleasers can tell themselves,
I,
and
I
that
think
is where it's dangerous and not good and healthy.
I think the crazy thing that hopefully the viewers are picking up is how you can engage in behaviors and not know why you're doing it. It's
Right.
like you can have you can just be doing this thing, you barely recognize that this is what you're doing, and you don't even realize why. And then
Mhm.
further, you don't realize that the very thing that you're doing is minimizing you getting the outcome that you want. And
Right.
people are so prepared to trivialize mental health. But I hope you guys are getting the powerful dynamics that will drive our behaviors, and we're not even aware of it. We don't even understand where it's coming from. So I
Mhm.
hope you're really getting that this is not Christian behavior, people pleasing. This is not Christian behavior. Sometimes
Right.
what God is literally calling you to is maybe to set a boundary and let that
Right.
person know, no, you're being inappropriate.
This
But
is
please,
the Samaritan
what's
that we're
that?
talking. This is not the good Samaritan that we're talking about.
This is not the Good Samaritan.
The good
This is not the
Samaritan
Good Samaritan.
was what was in the man was in need, and he was even going above and beyond what people of his culture were trained to do, because it was actually
But
not a okay thing.
you brought it up, so I just want to go there. Like
Okay.
the Good Samaritan is not even a story about being a good Samaritan. That's not even the point of this. That's the interesting thing. The Good
Mhm.
Samaritan is a story to help you understand you don't know where help is coming from.
Right.
It's actually a story about why are you being mean? Why are you being racist? When you're in need, you have
Right.
no idea where help is coming from.
Right.
So, who is your neighbor? The very person you're inclined to think is your neighbor may walk right past you,
Right.
and help will come from this person that you're looking down on. So
Right.
that's actually the perspective. Because here's the thing, Sister Atante, you tell me when your kids started learning how to drive, and I know you have actually daughters, you told them, you know what? At midnight, if you're walking by and you see somebody in trouble, remember the story of the Good Samaritan. You tell
No.
me you gave him that speech. No, you said,
No, no.
keep on driving, keep on driving,
Okay.
call
Keep
somebody if you will, and be
call
sure you don't crash while you're calling, and you keep
911.
on going. That's the
Okay.
story is not about being good. It's actually about you don't know where help is coming from. So,
Mhm.
that's an interesting twist to me, the story of the Good
Yeah.
Samaritan.
Yes. We have a question here from May. It says, what part does temperance play in self-care, or are they the same thing? So
Mm.
temperance needs to be in every a part of life. We need to have temperance, right? That's how we do, not only to stay physically healthy, but mentally healthy. And so when you have, you need to do self care, but there's there's always a time where you can do too much of something. Like, let's just say massages are your self care, right? So, but you have to have a massage every day of the week. Well, it's probably too many massages. Who needs a massage every single day? I mean, um, if people are able, that's probably just too much time with that. When you're saying when you're exercising should be done every day for your mental and physical health. I mean, it's not like, doing it once a day, every day, in the week would not be um, overdoing it, wouldn't be not being temperate. But if you, this is common sense, is what some of the things that I'm saying for sure. Like if you're exercising once a day, and then you have to exercise and you're missing important appointments, or you don't have time to do the special thing with your wife or your husband or for your children, that's when it becomes a problem, when you're not able to do the other important things that you need to do. But because you are doing the self-care, you're overdosing on self-care. Let's just say that. That's usually not the problem. I have not seen that problem, but just since the question was asked, that was my answer. What's your answer, Dr. White?
No, I thought you started off with, hey man, you need some common sense. Don't forget to use some good common sense. And then we, of course, we're going to caution against being temperate in all things, because we don't want you temperate with crack use. Avoid crack, you know, avoid the heroin, avoid the. There are some things that you really just should avoid, just outright. So I want to qualify that, but I think May, I agree with Sister Tante that you want good common sense. You definitely want to be judicious, And it all starts with, why am I doing this?
Mhm.
Why am I doing this? What is it? Is this really, am I feeling called to do this? Or is this coming from a space of fear? Am I afraid that if I'm honest, I'm gonna lose this person? And what does that mean? And then, is this activity actually keeping them? I was listening to Charles Barkley, who mentioned that, uh, I guess it was another NBA players who, I guess they were spending some time. It might have been at the Olympics, and the family member said, "Hey, I got to go back to work." And he's like, "Wait, your son? They just got this huge contract, and you got to go to work?" And she said, "Hey, let me tell you something. Whatever you do, don't 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 pay for their lifestyle. Don't pay for your loved one's lifestyle, because the first time you say no, they will be angry with you." And Charles talked about how, that's what he experienced. So
Mhm.
anyway, so the point just being, um, am I doing this to not lose a person? Am I doing
Mhm.
this to not lose a person? And just realizing, wouldn't it be great if they loved you for who you were and who
Mhm.
you were truthfully? Like,
Mhm.
how cool does it feel to, like, look around and see that the people around you are around you for being the real you? It's like, man, that's really cool.
Mhm.
And how painful is it that the people who are around you are around you for the fake you? Like, I mean, that's
Mhm.
painful. And you know what? You might not want to acknowledge that consciously, but there is no lying to your subconscious mind. On
Mhm.
some level, you recognize this twist, and your body won't like it. You won't like it.
Right. Yeah, we have a question.
Ashley is back with another zinger. How do you navigate those toxic, conditional relationships? As a child, my mother was severely emotionally and physically abusive with her love. Now, as an adult, how do I not try to please her? How do I not try to please her? Sounds like some counseling would be a great idea, Ashley,
Sure.
because I think what we're highlighting is these dynamics are so invisible, so imperceptible, so hard for us to make sense of by ourselves. And I think this is where some good therapy is able to now have you see what the dynamics are and then
Mhm.
apply it to your specific situation. So, for example, I have no idea how old your mom is, but what if she's in this state now where she really and truly does need a lot of support? Now,
Mhm.
imagine if I made the mistake of telling you, you withdraw your support, honey, when in fact that's what she might really need. So, this is where good therapy can actually understand the dynamics in your situation, help you better understand them, and then effectively apply it to your situation so you get the outcome that you really want. But that's a great question, and without fail, one of the things that trauma does is it surrounds us with dynamics that we cannot often make sense of, and it positions us for outcomes that we actually don't want.
Mhm. Yeah, I had a client who came to me for stress, and and as she introduced herself and her situation, we got to the bottom of it, and it was the stress was because she was a people pleaser.
Hmm.
She was an
Hmm.
extreme people pleaser, so she's trying to be the most amazing mom and the most amazing wife, and still cannot say no to all of the outside sources that are pulling on her. People pleasers have a difficult time saying no. They very rarely ever say no, and they avoid conflict like the plague. Like they will say yes to something just to avoid conflict, or just because, again, because they're afraid based off of fear, and they won't say no. And I gave her an example. I said, I just asked her and I said, okay, because she has a hard time saying no. And I said, well, I want you to do a session on Saturday night at 9 p.m. And she looked at me like her eyes got big because she felt the anxiety just because I asked the question. Now, of course, that's not really what I wanted, right? But just me saying that to her eyes got big and she was like, well, I guess I should say no. And I'm like, I don't want you to. Now, I said, now I know that I'm your therapist, but just because I asked you that question, asked her, I said, what were you feeling inside? She said, I just couldn't, I felt that I should not say no. And that is what she tells herself every single time
Well,
that somebody hits her. And then she's coming into therapy because she's so stressed. It's causing physical issues, of course, emotional issues. It's because she doesn't know how to say no. And she's a people pleaser, but she never looked at herself in that way.
that is so profound. And McDonald, by the way, that's a phenomenal question. We're coming to you right this instant, but um, so you know that I'm passionate about burnout, right? Super passionate
Mhm.
about burnout. The
Mhm.
founder, the father of burnout is a gentleman by the name of Herbert Freudenberger. And
Mhm.
so he has a book on burnout. Guess what is at the beginning of burnout? Guess what is at the beginning of burnout? Noble aspirations. Noble aspirations. I want to
Mhm.
be the best mother ever. I
Yes.
want to be the number one worker here. I want to be the best physician on the planet.
Mhm.
Over I want to be the best athlete, whatever it is, at
Right.
the center and at the crux of burnout. Noble aspiration. And that doesn't mean you're all going to burn out. Have these
Mhm.
noble aspirations, but make sure you also get the support that protects you from burning out. But
Right.
I just want you to see how these noble and overarching aspirations actually put us on a dangerous path. So make sure that you get the support you need so that you don't burn out. But I just thought that was super intriguing. All right, Mr. McDonald, H. McDonald, could you talk about people pleasing versus codependency? So, in this segment, we have defined people pleasing, and we mentioned it's this chronic, consistent, penchant inclination to always putting the needs of others first. You don't feel as if you are entitled to have your needs prioritized. That's the
Mhm.
essence of people pleasing.
Mhm.
Contrasting that with codependency, where you're doing for others what they could do for themselves.
Right.
You're doing for others what
Mhm.
they can do for themselves. Codependency is a dynamic you often see with families dealing with their loved ones who are addicted to something. And you'll see things like, okay, I can strap them down to the bed, you're not leaving the house, and where are you going? And you get this kind of feedback and kind of this thought that I can control you, I can
Mhm.
take the choice of you doing this drug out of you. It's
Right.
trying to do for someone what they need to do for themselves. um
Yeah.
so that's the difference with codependency. It's really driven by fear. It's like you love this person, you see that they're destroying themselves, and so you really want to take away from them the ability to make that choice. Now, here's the reality. During treatment, there's an important part of treatment where often the person is in a setting where it's strongly discouraged that they leave, because it's an understanding that, hey, you're at a phase in the illness where you need this level of support. But
Mhm.
I'll tell you what, family are often not qualified to implement that kind of stuff on their own. They need professional support so that they can be sure that what they're doing is actually therapeutic. But you will see this dynamic where at times we are trying to do for someone what they need to do for themselves, and that's a core component of codependency. But it's fear-based. You're afraid of this outcome, versus with people pleasing, you're afraid of losing that person, and so it drives you to engaging in behaviors to please the person. So that's the difference with the two.
Because people pleasers also struggle with abandonment, like they don't want to be left alone. And so they will do whatever it takes to what they think can keep somebody. I want to say Or Miss Hattie said that was H. McDonald. That was Miss Hattie. And so
Oh, okay.
she just
Okay.
wanted to
Thank you.
clarify
Got it.
Hattie. But,
Thank you, Miss Hattie.
DJ, what are some ways to say no but still maintain the relationship? And I love what Clint said, because he's been watching this program for a while. Thank you, Clint. Learning how to say the beautiful no. I love to teach clients that, to learn how to say the beautiful no, because you can say no in the most beautiful way, and it's kind and respectful, and whoever you're saying no to, they know that you authentically really love them, but you have to say no. Because people think to say no, it has to be mean, it has to be ugly. It absolutely does not. There's a beautiful no, and I got
Yeah,
that
Clint.
from Dr. Whyte.
Yeah, Clint, stop stealing our thunder, man. No, I'm totally joking. No, it's so refreshing to see how closely Clint listens. We love it, man. That's why we missed you so much. Um, we didn't know how we were going to do the program without you. But D, so just some quick pointers about the beautiful no. The knee jerk is, I mean, we would encourage this, like, try to stay away from just knee jerk yeses. You know,
Right.
um, an important part of the beautiful no is learn what's being asked. It's get really clear on what are this person's expectations about fulfilling this task, because what you're demonstrating is you care. You're demonstrating that you really want to see where this might fit into your slot, so that
Mhm.
ultimately when you deliver that beautiful no, when I've reviewed it, I've listened to you, I've really scanned to see where this would fit in my schedule, and currently at this time there is no place, but I care about you, and that's why I took the time to really think about it and see where it, as opposed to no, 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 no. As
Right.
humans, we will need each other, and so at some point you might get a beautiful no. And so of course that's not, so that's why it's just so important for you to take some time to really see, is this something incongruent with what I can do at this time? And if
Mm,
it is, be honest. Be
yeah.
honest. Again, we can't really advise you because we don't know your specific situations, and I don't want a bunch of you losing your jobs because you gave your boss the beautiful no. Like, that's why it's so important to really know what are the specifics that you're dealing with. But these
Mm,
are some general principles that you can partner with your healthcare team to figure out how you apply it to your life. And
right.
Clinton said, children certainly need to hear the beautiful no and the ugly yes. Don't forget the ugly yes. Um, don't forget the ugly yes.
But yeah, I agree with Clint though. You can say a beautiful no even to your children, um, without, what I want to say, just without dashing their spirits or without anger. Like saying the beautiful no is without anger or with frustration. Without that, the no can be beautiful when you leave anger and frustration out of it, and just sincerity, and show how much you really love them and you wish you could, but you can't, or this is not a good reason. This is a no because of this reason, but not because I don't care and love for you. Because
Right.
sometimes as parents, we just get so quick to be like, no, you can't get that. No, 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 no. And it's just the way we say it. It's not the no, it's how we do it.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I enjoy saying yes to my daughter. So where possible, I love saying yes.
Where you can, when you
Right. And,
can.
and I think that sets it up for when I finally say no. I mean, she understands. If he could, he would.
And that's what my dad used to say. He's like, if I could, I would. And he's like, but I can't. And he would just always say that. And I knew, because he always did say yes a lot of times.
Yeah, it's like, this is fun. We're positioning ourselves to be able to give our kids the things we didn't get. So,
Right. But not everybody, not all children experience that from parents. They experience ugly nose, if you will.
oh
Ugly.
man, yeah,
Yeah.
that's sad.
Some can cause some scarring and trauma.
Because
Uh,
essentially we don't mind the no, we just don't want to be dismissed. So show me that you value me,
mhm.
and then set the boundary that you need to. Because if you like, it is painful that a person say yes to you and you see they weren't in the position to do that. Then I know personally I feel rotten. But if you're surrounded by sociopaths, they could care less that you're not in a position to do it, which is why you're responsible to protect yourself.
Right.
You don't want to leave that to someone else.
Yes. I don't, yes, we have lots of comments and we think we've gotten to most of the questions, but I want to let everyone know that we are going to be doing a part 2, kind of recapping this and talking about some more issues, but giving some answers on how, and I think we gave a little bit of that today too, but giving some answers or how you can stop being a people pleaser, but some healthy ways and what that, looks like. Because we're looking at the book, The Disease to Please. I think that we have definitely began to take that deep dive and had a lot of interest
Yeah.
this topic. So please share.
Put a 1 in the chat if you got some value this evening, so we know that we are on your cutting edge.
We will wait for some of that. But as you guys are putting a 1 in the chat, just want you again to say we're going through the book, The Disease to Please by Dr. Harriet Brachier. I hope I'm saying that name right. But you can always look it up for yourself. She has done an amazing work with this book, because again, it's not a thing that people think about as a problem or issue, or can be a problem or issue. They don't even think that they can set boundaries down, that they're people pleasers don't even think they're allowed to do that.
That is
So
so
again,
profound. Yeah.
yeah,
You don't feel like you're entitled. And my goodness, are you entitled? You're entitled to set your boundaries.
yes. And you're entitled to say the beautiful no. And that's coined by Dr. Whyte. You are allowed to do that. So, all right. Yes. Well, we want to thank you all for joining us. So good to be back with you. So next week we will do a part 2, go in a little deeper, and also just give you some hope. If you're really struggling with this, or someone that is, we're going to give you some hope and ways that you can deal with it. But always, if you feel like it's something that you need to go talk to a professional mental health provider, you could talk to them about this. Definitely seek out a mental health provider in your area. So
Absolutely. Till next
again,
time. And thank you guys for the 1s, because we definitely want to be on your cutting edge. And then,
yeah,
Sister Hattie gave you a shout out. She said your series on trauma was especially a blessing to her and promoted some healing. So just an
hey, yeah.
FYI.
All right. We'll have to bring, yes, that was with Christina Cooper. We have to bring her back. We had her on here once, and we've had her on Sabbath School once. So we'll have to
Yeah,
bring her back.
she was phenomenal. She was
Yeah.
absolutely phenomenal. Yeah.
Can't do too much on trauma. I cannot.
Mhm.
It's so much,
Mm.
it's so going on in so many people's lives. So, all right. All right. Have a good evening. Thank you again.
Take
And we
care,
will see
everyone.
and we will see you next week.
See you next.